This is Tim.
This is Jonathan.
And this is Chris.
Welcome to The Average, where we don't just watch movies, we break them down, but not scene by scene.
Nope, we're here to talk about what makes a movie. Script, acting, music, direction.
And everything in between, because movies aren't just something you watch, they're something you experience.
And that experience, it's different for everyone. Your past, your perspective, it all shapes how the movie hits you.
That's why we celebrate those differences, whether it's a brand new release or an obscure cult favorite, or something in between. We're here to break it down.
And we want you to join the conversation. Every episode, we score movies using our own system, and you can too, using any of the three methods on our Instagram.
And before we jump in, we've got an exciting update for Season 3. You might remember him from our Black Christmas episodes with Ivy Tholen during 13 Nights of Halloween, and way back our very first, 2 years ago now, 13 Nights of Halloween episode with Ring. Chris Patillo is now going to be joining us pretty much full time.
Thank you. Yeah, thrilled to be here. I'm an ex-Instagram personality, but I currently don't have the social media, so I'm going to be kind of a ghost.
I'm going more that direction every day. So.
Yeah.
Totally understandable. Anyhow, more movies, more discussion, and more perspectives, adding a richer dialogue to our already awesome analysis. Thank you for being here, Chris.
Happy to be here.
But before we get into it, don't forget to like this episode, drop your total score in the comments using those methods on our Instagram, and hit subscribe wherever you found us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Tonight, we're diving into The Monkey, the latest Stephen King adaptation, this time from Osgood Perkins, who less than a year ago released a pretty well-received movie in Longlegs. This is a mix of horror and dark comedy based on one of King's lesser-known short stories. But before we get into whether it works or not, let's set the stage.
Yeah, so this one's been in development limbo for years. Frank Darabont had the rights way back, but nothing ever came of it. Then in 2023, it was suddenly back on the table with Perkins directing and James Wan producing. And what we ended up with is this movie that takes King's original concept, a cursed toy monkey that causes deaths, and twists it and just totally twist it into something a lot more unhinged.
Yeah, one of the big changes right off the bat is that the monkey doesn't have cymbals like in the original. It's a drumming monkey now. And apparently that is because the producers were worried Disney might own the rights to the cymbal banging version from Toy Story 3. Disney,
which is hilarious. That's awesome. Imagine legal trouble over something like that. But the real shift here is in the tone. Perkins has talked a lot about how he took major liberties with the story, leaning into absurdity, extreme gore, and a kind of morbid humor. His take is that death is random, cruel, and sometimes so ridiculous that all you can do is laugh.
Yeah, so a lot of this is coming from a personal place for him. He's been open about tragedies in his life. If you know anything about Perkins, he is the son of Anthony Perkins, who turned in the greatest horror performance of all time, in my opinion, as Norman Bates in Psycho. So he's his son, but I don't remember how Anthony died, but it was pretty unique. I actually think it might have been AIDS. I should double check that before I let that in the final episode. But his mom was on one of the planes in 9/11.
Wow.
Dude.
So that was his coming at it from a personal place. He's been open about these tragedies and how it shaped him and his approach to horror. He basically told the studio, your script about a killer monkey toy is too serious. People around this monkey die in the most insane ways imaginable. Why wouldn't we lean into that?
Absolutely. Which makes for an interesting mix, because on one hand, you've got this dark family drama between two estranged brothers, Hal and Bill, both of whom have been scarred by the monkey's curse. But then you've also got these completely over-the-top death scenes, decapitations, explosions, swarms of wasps, and a guy getting trampled by a stampede.
It's all wrapped up in this Stephen King meets Final Destination kind of logic where the deaths are unpredictable and elaborate. The moment someone turns that key, you're just waiting to see how this is going to play out.
Right. And it's got a lot of that early 2000s horror energy, big, messy, and kind of just mean-spirited, but in a way that's intentionally funny, you know?
Yeah. Which is where this gets interesting because some people love that approach. For others, it might not hit.
And that's what we're about to get into. So let's dig in on this gnarly ass film. We're going with some story and plot action. Who would like to go first?
Yeah. Has anybody read the original?
No.
That was going to be a question I had for you. I am not familiar with it at all.
I'm not familiar with it at all, but I will say that based on my viewing, I feel like the kid's story and dropping the monkey into the well is where Stephen King's story ends. I felt like there was
the same impression.
shift.
Did you guys ever see Monkey Shines?
I did see Monkey Shines.
Because I vaguely remember bits and pieces of it, and
it's
I'm assuming
similar,
that was the original movie version of this.
Okay.
So wasn't sure if you guys recalled any of that.
I did see it. It was one of those I watched while I was doing something else, so I don't remember it a ton. But I did wonder if this was a remake of that one. I didn't look into that a lot.
I've heard some back and forth with small blurbs I've seen online, but nothing I've actually dug into.
Yeah.
But for me, man, I thought the story was awesome. You know, just these two hateful brothers, you know, did the early on story part of it, of them growing up and the bullshit that the one gives the other and the animosity that builds, that quiet seething, you asshole, I hate you, Bill, you know, from Hal.
Yeah.
And just how that carries on into their adulthood. With this fucking grudge that Bill has against Hal because of their mom's death, you know, from, you know, messing with the monkey, you know, dude,
there's going to be spoilers if you're listening. We're just going to spoil it. I'm not going to try not to. It's going to happen. I was going to say,
I want to, but I don't want to be that person because it's so much awesomeness that I want to talk about as far as
yeah, we're going to talk about it. So if you're worried about spoilers, skip to the last 10 minutes where we give final thoughts.
Well, you kind of have to talk about spoilers with this one. It's like the trailers. The trailers did not really give away, really what was going to go on, which I appreciated about the trailers, but it had to, you know, it couldn't lean too much into what was actually going to happen in the movie, because it takes away a lot of the allure of it, you know?
Yeah, agreed.
I think for my wife, because we saw it together yesterday, she didn't realize it was going to be this funny. So, nice. And I think that was detrimental for the first trailer, at least, to lean so serious. The first trailer leaned pretty serious, and then it kind of loosened up a little bit since then. Some of the marketing since then has been hinting at the campier side of it. But I've been pretty open that I don't like comedies. I don't find them funny. I found this movie hilarious, and I was the only person in my theater who laughed quite a bit, because this was my kind of humor. This is my sense of humor, because it was messed up. I thought it was so funny.
Heck yeah.
I wondered, my issues with the story come in, I feel like it was trying to tell a deeper story at times, and I'm not always sure how well it stuck that. There was a little bit of hint of generational trauma. So this came from my father is said a lot. My brother and I carried this from our father, which was a hilarious opening. He says that, and then at the end, it's him and his son who have to keep this, you know. So there's a little bit of hint of that, but it's not really expanded on all that much. And there's also that... I actually really like the life on the monkey and how it's random, and it seems to be, or appears to be, random life. And I thought that was good. Just wasn't that much deeper with it. I don't know that this is the movie that needed it, but something more in the end would have helped. The jerk brother was just the most over the top cliche bully brother in like the best way.
Oh, Bill was a total knob.
Yeah. I couldn't stand him. And I also, I couldn't stand him. I'll get into it more, but I did like the nerdy brother. What was his name?
Hal.
Our main Hal. Yeah. I appreciated the way a lot of what we're experiencing early on is kind of seen through his lens. So his bully brother is seen through his lens, but also the girls in the movie. Like, he's a prepubescent nerdy boy, and all of these girls are shot in a way that they seem giant and terrifying, and they're bullies, and he's intimidated. And I'm like, I thought that was pretty clever. I actually appreciated that approach to the younger kid side of the story, which I was surprised that was there, because I did not know it was going to be. I don't remember kids being in the trailers.
Mm-mm.
So when it took up the first like 40 minutes of the movie, I was a little surprised by that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you definitely see young Hal and Bill, but the trailers, at least in my opinion, didn't give any indication that was like young, like a younger version of himself, and that's what this kind of movie was going to be. Like, have the split with, like you said, the first 40 or so minutes being them as children, and then the rest of the movie them being grown up.
Yeah, but I also like that whole bit that you've got going between Hal and his son Petey. How he wants to protect his son, but wants to try and get as much time as he can, but he can't. And like how the monkey brings them together in like a really kind of dark way. It's something else, man. But overall, man, I really enjoyed this story for what it was. I didn't really expect it to be as funny as it was. So that was a pleasant twist for me in the theater. I just scored this one as a 4,
Okay. So I was actually a 3 on this one, because it's a cursed object story. It's a cursed object story at its heart. It tries to bring in that generational trauma story. It tries to bring in a little bit more, like I mentioned. I'm not sure exactly how successful it was at that. The ending to me left a little bit to be desired. I kind of thought the ending was going to go a little, I say a little bit bigger, but at the same time we had like a plane crash and half of the city die, but which I thought was hilarious, but it also felt really disconnected. Like, I didn't understand throughout the whole movie. It's the final time the drumstick falls that someone dies. It plays the song, and then it holds it, and then when that falls, the last one dies. But somehow at the end, when the monkey started just hammering away, every hit meant someone died.
Yeah, dude, that monkey went off, dude. After Bill tried to force it to do what he wanted it to do.
That could be why, yeah. It felt like the rules changed in that moment just a little bit. I mean, I didn't hate it. It just left a little bit to be desired for me there. So I gave it a 3 on that one.
Yeah, I gave it a 3 as well. And I mean, to everything you said, both of you have said, I mean, it is, a cursed object story. There's lots of like Final Destination type influence, like you had said in the introduction. Yeah. And then, I don't know, I focused kind of, it wasn't a very compelling story to me. And I know it wasn't necessarily trying to, but at the same time, to your earlier point, there were like deeper things here that were trying to be said. And part of my problem with the movie, and we'll get into it, is kind of like an identity crisis. I don't know, like, this movie's half in comedy, half in serious, but I don't know that I don't know that they meshed as well as they should have, at times at least. And so I don't know. I did give it a 3 though.
So we actually got 2 other scores from Bearded Film Guy on Instagram and Aaron, who did the Wolfman movie with us. They both scored this at a 4. So they're right there with you, Jonathan, on story. So
yeah,
our character here, this This was a tougher one for me. So, do we want to start with positive or negative?
I just want to say, as far as characters go, I wish I'd have seen more happen to Elijah Wood as that shitty stepdad.
Yes.
Trying to be like, I took your power. I was like, dude, shut the fuck up, dude. You didn't take anyone's power. You're just being an asshole. Trying to mess with a dude and his kid's connection.
That was the funniest scene in the movie when they're sitting on the couch holding hands. You feel that? I just took your power. Well, what are you talking about? When he starts to argue back, I didn't give you permission to take my power. This is hilarious. I loved that whole exchange.
I just think that was one of those moments though where I feel like it was too much of like a comedy. Like it wasn't dark comedy at that point. It was like a scene you could see in a Judd Apatow movie, or like Forgetting Sarah Marshall or something. Like I mean, which it was funny and I laughed.
Yeah.
That and the scene with the pastor or the priest with the first death, and he has horrible. That. Yeah, and it's like it was so absurd. I mean, it was funny, but it's like this is absolutely just absurd. And I don't know. At that point, I hadn't really felt like what this movie was like yet, and so
I was like, it leaned into the absurdity.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if on second watch, now that you know it's kind of absurdist, would you enjoy it more from that perspective?
I think so.
Yeah, I think that is generally what I'm seeing in people's feedback has been like my wife didn't know it was going to be funny. She thought it was going to be like a Final Destination, little more serious horror type thing. And then I'm busting out laughing in the first scene when the guy's intestines get ripped out by that harpoon hook.
That was so great.
I'm dead.
Oh my
I'm
God.
laughing. And I'm like, when he's like, oh, you do not want that arm to come down. I enjoyed that. Yeah.
I loved the Adam Scott cameo. Or it was a cameo to me because I didn't know he was going to be in it. And the first scene, and he was just so good. He's so fucking funny.
Okay, but what happened to him?
Nobody knows.
Yeah, they said he just left one day. So that was one of the loose threads that I wanted to come back at the end. I'm fine not knowing where this monkey came from, anything about that. I prefer to not know anything else about this monkey toy. I don't need an origins. I don't need the Annabelle origins of this monkey toy. Okay? But when the last thing we see of the dad is him flamethrowering the monkey it reminded me of Inglourious Bastards from Quentin Tarantino. That's what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
When he's doing that, and then the next thing we hear is that he left and never came back, I want resolution to that. Did he die? Did the monkey get him? Or did he just run far away? Because when the monkey starts killing everybody around them, if the dad is still alive, that means he's open game. So I was kind of hoping that would come back at the end, but it didn't make or break the movie for me. But I would have liked to see Adam Scott make an appearance in the final act, maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, I think the movie would have benefited from more explanation, but also just more Adam Scott screen time.
And how did the monkey get from being flamethrowered to them, in the first place? I didn't quite get on that, but
it's the same as when the boy chopped it up and it reappeared. It just
okay, all right,
yeah. They jokingly like, oh, it can teleport. We know that, and it's just all powerful monkey toy. You're just supposed to buy it, and that is one area where I think the absurdity, if anything, I don't think it leaned into absurdist quite enough. It's pretty absurd, but I agree with Oz in saying that we're making a movie about a killer monkey toy. We can't take it seriously. Like you can't. You gotta go campy. You gotta go absurd with it. So I agree with him there. Ultimately, the character arc for me didn't land tremendously because Hal is the same at the end as he is at the beginning, other than his relationship with his son. That might have improved, but that was all his brother's doing. So the credit here I actually give to the brother, who the spoiler here is that the brother is behind it all. How did you feel about that?
I mean, I wasn't surprised at all. I mean, it was just kind of a little too safe of a play for me. I mean, I don't know the source material, so maybe that's how it is, but I don't know.
See, I feel like the Stephen King book ended with them dropping it in the well. And then everything after that was Oz's continuation of the story. I don't know that for a fact. That's a guess. When it was revealed to be the brother, I was like, it was a little bit of an eye roll for me, but I was also like, it makes sense. It makes sense,
Yeah,
but
he's got his like weird, like trapped out like fortress though. I mean, it was just, I
that
mean, I don't know. It was
that was
funny.
the
I was just like, what the fuck? What's going on? Like, what
in
is
his
this?
haircut.
His Rube Goldberg machine setup of stuff he's got going on
Yes,
there. And I was like,
Yeah.
hey, okay.
his
Yeah.
haircut was the thing I noticed the most. It was just
Jeez.
hair.
He looked like a friggin' weirdo, man. And then like his childhood, his altered childhood tuxedo for the funeral stuffs. They
Wait,
took like his skater shirt from like junior high and
yes,
like seamed it in with everything. Like,
the
bro, come
bottom.
on. He looks like such a nutter, bro. So bad. But his comeuppance and everything, and like Hal kind of getting what he wanted from that first turnkey eventually by the end of the film, I thought that was kind of ironic but funny. So, I mean, I
Yeah,
felt that worked pretty well as far as some character arc, as far as Hal getting that childhood wish come true finally, even though like they kind of had their resolution at the end, you know?
I was kind of I kind of knew the brother was going to die at the end. It was one of those like they'd showed us all of these pieces, so I was waiting for that final monkey arm to drop, and I was like, it's not going to be Hal. His son's right there. They're not going to end the movie. This movie, the way everything been going, I was like, it's going to be the brother. The cannon taking his head off though, and it being the bowling ball from the beginning of the movie, I thought that was pretty good.
Right.
So
So, I mean, interesting that they become like the guardians now of the monkey, Hal and Petey. So, I mean, I kind of hope that leaves some leeway to some kind of really weird sequel and some more awesome deaths and gore. Who knows? But, you know, the fact that him and his son are now a little closer and his son understands why everything is the way it is and why he's been so distant, you know, as crazy as it is, I think that's a wonderful thing.
yeah,
I just would
I'm
like to see a
actually.
bigger finish on the end for that.
This is the kind of movie that I'm not opposed to a sequel to, because do we need it? Not necessarily. Would I watch it? Probably. So it was just kind of absurdist and fun, and if I get more absurdity and fun, I'm okay with that. I just see the sequel would delve into the gray territory of where the monkey came from, and that's what I don't need. So that
I
would
would
be
like a
my
sequel to see Elijah Woods die.
yeah. That was my. I thought he was gonna get it at once they introduced him, and you cast Elijah Wood, he's gonna die, but he didn't. I've also been watching Yellow Jackets, and he has a big part in that. So
Okay.
Yellow Jackets is great, by the way.
I have not seen it.
Cannibalism, cultish stuff with teenage girls in the woods.
Jeez.
It's
Okay.
a Showtime. It's pretty good.
Isn't that one girl on it too? Sophie Thatcher, is that her name? The
Yeah.
new, she's like
So,
got like a good run of some horror movies recently.
Sophie Thatcher. Yeah, they definitely amped her character up in season 3 because she's gotten pretty popular.
That's what I've heard.
Ella Purnell was in season 1 and has done a couple cameos in the rest of the seasons. And then there was one. Yeah, I think those two really blew up after the first 2 seasons of Yellow Jackets, and now they're done a bunch of movies. But yeah, I was a 3 for the character, how compelling the arc was.
I went 4.
And I went 2. But I think anything, like I had a lot of fun with this movie. So anything negative for me is, and I've said this, but leans into how absurd certain things were. And I just really couldn't take a lot of like the impactful character moments and development seriously when it wasn't serious. But I'm also not the biggest fan of comedy. And when I do watch comedy movies and get into them, like compelling character, compelling plot isn't really, you know, what I'm watching it for. So yeah, I ended up going with the 2.
All right. Wait, you're adding depth to the conversation. We ranged from 2 to 4. So the music and sound design on this one. Oh, our friends, Bearded Film Guy gave it a 3, and Aaron from AB Horror Movies gave it a 3 as well.
Okay.
So for music and sound design,
Music. There's a couple of like memorable songs that pick up, some like old school classics that they threw in there through some parts, which were well placed. The rest of it just blended really well. I love all the sound effects that they had for all of the different deaths and the squishes and the splats, and just like things being triggered and all these little things going on. Like, dude, they're like between all the deaths and like all the craziness that happens, there's so much depth of sound of all the different stuff that you hear, and
it's like
kicks ass
murder.
pretty good.
It's murder ASMR.
Basically. Yeah. Man.
The monkey circus song that plays when he's drumming is something that I would recognize instantly again. Be like, yeah, that's from the monkey. They did a pretty good job of making that recognizable. I did wonder if they got that from like an old school toy already, or they probably wrote it for the movie. But I thought that was pretty good. But the rest of the movie, like you said, the music fit. I liked some of the licensed song choices, but the sound effects of the death were the highlight for me. The various sound effects were nicely done, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, it was just very punchy, and to your point, like ASMR, like in a weird, like or like a mukbang YouTube video, but for like just gruesome death.
Yes.
And yeah, I gave it a 3 because I thought there was some good stuff, but I at the same time there wasn't like any like super memorable like piece of the soundtrack. I guess the monkey song, but
see, I was a 4 on this one, so I was a little bit higher on this one.
I'm a 3.
Okay, so I got the high score on that one. Bearded Film Guy gave it a 5, and Aaron gave it a 2. So we had every score but a 1 on that. So there really isn't a whole lot more to say about that one, though. But
it's not a point of
editing and
focus,
special effects, this one we could probably talk about for a minute. The cherry pie.
Uncle Chip.
Yeah, I want to know if that, like, did they actually just use cherry pie for that? Because that was slushy and goopy. And this is one of my biggest complaints about this movie, okay, is I don't know how many trailers you guys watched for it, but every death was in a trailer. Every death was in a trailer, other than the final death, and I think the B one. But yeah. I saw enough trailers for this that I saw it all. There was a trailer going around with Oz sitting down with coroners, and they were watching the movie and then seeing like, oh, could that realistically happen? Blah, 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 blah. And that went around, and they showed the soupy sleeping bag of the uncle. They showed the aunt's face catching on fire, all of that. So I was a little disappointed because there was no surprises. I was like, I wanted some more surprising deaths. I still enjoyed them. The number of people who explode from nothing is great.
Yeah, everybody explodes.
Everybody explodes. The swimming pool. I was going to say
that is so absurd. That a shock to the pool is going to make her explode when she dives in. I mean, really.
Talking about absurd. That's one of the most absurd scenes in the movie. It's like 2 a.m. that he answers his phone, and he goes outside to the pool, and there's just this chick in a bikini who decides 2 a.m. is the time to go swimming. And the air conditioner unit falling in the pool is enough to make her body explode on contact with the water.
I think that was
pretty hard.
No, it didn't even fall in the pool. It hit the ground and struck a puddle of water, and the shock went through the puddle into the pool. Like, that is super effing absurd, man. Like, what the hell?
I thought it was funny.
Yeah, that was I think my favorite scene in the movie. I mean, it was dumb, but I did not expect her. Like that was the last thing that I expected.
It was one of the most surprising deaths. It's like, oh my god, like you get a real shock from it because like I did not expect that. Like okay,
her leg flies up and it hits him. I thought that was so good. I genuinely thought we were gonna get like a prolonged water electrocution. That it was going to be a slow, like agonizing him just watching her. No, instant explosion. But then the shotgun has the same effect on the realtor.
That dude, that got me. I was like, oh my god, like oh shit. It was not. I was expecting like bugs or something like crazy to jump out at her.
Yeah, that one cracked me up. That one was in a trailer, so I knew the gun was going to pop out of that one. I think the one that surprised me that I enjoyed was the realtor signpost for the ant. I knew it was like the monkey kept trying, like the stairs breaking didn't work. So it was like, okay, now I'm going to catch her on fire. And that didn't happen instantly.
In the face, dude. The lures in the face. I was like, this poor woman, one thing after the next, trying to take her out. Like, this lady did not deserve that. Aunt Ida, God rest her soul, did not deserve that.
No, she didn't, but it was pretty funny.
I loved her glasses. I loved her orange sunglasses.
One that I didn't understand, I think. So I guess they do say they never really answered it. The mom. So they said it was kind of that freak accident, one in whatever.
Boomerang aneurysm.
And the brother is trying to kill his brother because he believes the brother turned the key and it killed mom. That doesn't line up with all the deaths that we saw. None of them, they were all caused by physical objects. So he never really answers if he turned the key or not.
So you're saying that that could have just been like a natural death? It's like a coincidence thing? I guess, yeah, I didn't really think about it like that.
I don't know, man. The way they staged the blood and everything from the eyes and the ears and wherever I don't know, man.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of that might have just been for shock value, but the way I walked away at the end was him saying that he didn't turn it for his mom and that his mom truly was a freak accident. That is what I got because it wasn't super clear. I'm curious if someone else got that, but it doesn't answer that. I thought we would get more of an answer to that, but I walked away from him saying, because he reiterates to his brother, like, no, it's a 1 in whatever million chance. It was just that.
So he was kind of reinforcing what his mom had said when they were boys after the babysitter died and how she was talking about death to them.
Yeah.
You know, I see that was him kind of reinforcing what she had said from How to Bill in that way.
Yeah. I see that. That's just what I took from it, was that it was an accident, or not a monkey accident, but a true accident in nature, freak event that happened. And then it caused that rift between them, which I actually think adds a little more complexity to the movie. So I don't know, but we're on editing and special effects. And
yeah, we jumped a little bit. What do you think of the wasps, though?
I thought they looked pretty cheesy, but when they started like eating that guy from the inside,
yeah, his face, like jaw starts kind of coming off a little bit.
Yeah, like, I was getting uncomfortable. I was uncomfy there.
I was expecting it to be a little more, though. I was expecting something more to happen. I mean, I guess his face, like being chewed off by wasps from the inside, is kind of a lot already. But
expected him to explode.
I wanted to see the body split from like the pressure inside, not explode, just to press and like split, and then the bugs come out. You know, that's what I was hoping for.
I honestly thought the ending was going to have more chaotic. I thought there was going to be a body dump at the end. And technically there is, but it's after the climax when the cheerleaders on the bus was just, it was unnecessary. It was ridiculous. And I'm not mad that it's there.
Yep.
wasn't mad that it was there. I was like, this serves no purpose and it's a lot of fun. Except, they cheered. They were cheering when they brought the aunt's body out of the house, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Oh
where they
yeah.
came. Yep. So they were getting their return. Actually, so editing and special effects again. I thought all of the deaths were edited really well. The marketing for this movie actually made me think it was going to be gorier than it was. I thought it cut pretty quickly. We didn't see any of the crazy grossness. I thought it was tightly edited. Honestly, I enjoyed the construction of this movie probably more than the story itself. I thought it was tightly done. I liked a lot of the. I'll get into the shots and stuff with the direction, but I liked a lot of the editing they did with the monkey's shots, particularly the cutting from his drumming to showing something else, or Hal hearing the music during scenes when the monkey was active. I thought that was done nicely. I actually gave the editing and special effects a 5 because there wasn't anything I could complain about. I thought it was really well done on that department. I even thought his monkey shrine of TVs, even though I don't know what that was all about, I thought it was cool. So
And he was just watching videos of monkeys. Like I don't know.
Dude was on it, man. But I agree. I do think this category is a 5 all the way as well.
I gave it a 4, and I agree with everything. But I think there was some CGI that I thought was, I mean, a little, like, specifically at the very end when the cannonball takes off the brother's head. I mean, of course it's CGI, but it kind of just looked cheesy to me. And like the girls in the bus. So there was some CGI that I wasn't super thrilled about. But ultimately, I was impressed.
Pale Rider.
I completely agree that it was cheesy CGI, but it worked in this movie for me that it wasn't. I was like, I don't care that the cheerleaders looked a little cheesy because it was a cheesy scene in a cheesy moment. But I agree. You were not alone. Bearded Film Guy and Aaron both gave it 4s as well.
Oh, I really like that one shot where you saw the guy impaled on the tree with the surfboard.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, that is awesome. Like, holy crap.
And his briefcase is open. Yeah.
So the script for this one.
There were some fun lines in here. There wasn't really too much that you could really judge on the script here because most of it's all visual, from everything here. The beginning at the pawn shop, though, when Dad is trying to get rid of the monkey. Oh my God, what was it? When he pulls out the flamethrower and he's just like, "Who's smiling now, you infernal whore?" And whoosh. It's like, okay. Dad is like, "I'm getting rid of this thing." I thought that was pretty cool. And then when Hal picks up Petey and they're at that first hotel and after the lady explodes in the pool, he's trying to get Petey up and he's like freaking out. And what did he say? Was it we got to make like eggs and scramble?
Oh yeah, he screams it because his mom doesn't his mom or his dad say that at the beginning?
His mom does when he's in the back of the car. She's like eating in the front and kind of like saying some weird stuff to her son. But
yes, when she's like going through that, Dad left us, he made like an egg and scrambled. Yes.
Which I wasn't. Yeah. That was a weird line to me because I was expecting her to say something about like cracking or I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's some odd bits of dialogue in it, but overall it was still kind of fun. So I don't really have much to really say about the script other than that. The rest of it just kind of short bits that just kind of flow and carry on the rest of the visual part of the story.
So this is one of those moments that I wish I could take notes in the movie theater, but I can't. Because there were a couple I wanted to write down. When the mom is talking to the kids about death after the babysitter dies, I thought she actually had a really good line about just how it happens to everybody. the quote on IMDb is abbreviated, like it was taken from a commercial and cut the whole part of it. The quote on IMDb is everybody dies, some of us peacefully and in our sleep, and some of us horribly, and that's life. I think in the movie she says some of us die peacefully in our sleep, some of us die tied to our bed with a gag in our like. She just goes on and paints this whole scene about dying horribly. I actually thought that was a great line. I put my problems with the story because I feel like the story leaves a little bit to be desired. I thought the script was hilarious. I thought the script was sharp and witty. I'm not going to give it a glowing praise, but this was my kind of humor. So I thought it was really funny, even and probably when it wasn't supposed to be. But I have noticed now between Longlegs and this, Oz's sense of humor in his scripts, because Longlegs, much more serious movie, had some of the driest and darkest humor in just a couple scenes. It's not a lot of scenes. It's like she's talking to a young girl and it's just an awkward scene, but it comes across very funny for me. And that carries on into this movie, kind of a lot of dark, awkward humor. And I liked seeing him explore that more. I liked seeing him lean into that. So I enjoyed the script quite a bit, actually.
So this movie, though, kind of, I mean, because I loved Longlegs. Longlegs was one of my favorite horror movies last year. And I see some people online think that like Nicolas Cage's performance was really absurd and they couldn't take it seriously or get scared by it. But I thought it was like kind of chilling. But after
Yeah.
seeing this movie and understanding Oz's sense of humor, to your point a little more, it kind of makes me think like, I don't know, if I rewatch Longlegs, maybe I'll just find Nicolas Cage really funny and it's going to change my just how I view that movie.
See, I didn't find him funny in that movie, and I know what you're saying. My
see
wife did. My wife
Yeah.
did. She was like, I couldn't take him seriously. I thought he was chilling. I thought the FBI agent was the funny one because she was so socially awkward. There were numerous scenes where she like doesn't want to be doing what she's being asked, but she doesn't know how to say that, and I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah.
That's me. Have you
but-
seen that one, Jonathan?
No, I did not get around to watching it. I saw the trailer and it looked like it was really good, but then I started hearing mixed reviews and like how people thought it was like it ended up being like a really funny movie, and I'm like, what? Like, kind of confused me, so I just never got around to checking it out.
It's like an R-rated Scooby-Doo, is what I would say. I'll have to give you. I'll give you my streaming password because I have the digital copy.
But
Yeah, I loved that movie. I thought it was fantastic. But it like scratched an itch that I might have told this to you, Tim, like through text message or something, but it scratched an itch that like Silence of the Lambs like satisfied in the 90s. And not that it's, Silence of the Lambs tier per se, but
right.
Yeah, it just filled like a void, or like I said, scratched an itch that I've been
there's not enough of that horror crime genre.
Yeah, and just from like the tone and the vibe of that movie, the atmosphere was very just like dark and dismal, and you don't always get that as much anymore.
Right on. Well, as far as scores go, I sat at a 3 on this one.
So I was a 4 on the script for this one. I really enjoyed the script.
And I gave it a 2, but that's primarily because some of the comedy just didn't really land with me, and so I thought, I mean, sure it was intentional, but I don't know, some of it was very corny, and I was like, I don't know, it doesn't really fit. It's okay for it to be a corny comedy, but it just didn't fit with some of the other scenes, and so that was like kind of a jarring disconnect for me at times.
I am so curious if you watch this again later, if you would find it funnier because that's what you're getting into, or if you would like it even less. Bearded Film Guy and Aaron. Bearded Film Guy gave it a 4, and Aaron gave it a 3. So the acting, was the little boy played by the same guy? Same kid, both? Young Hal
I didn't
and
think
Billy?
so, but it could be. I thought they were two different.
They looked like two
actors.
different kids to me.
Yep, they are. Wait. Okay, so he is from. No, it is played by the same kid. So they did a good job with the hair, really
Okay.
making him look different. He played both young Hal and young Bill. Christian Convery. He played Sweet Tooth on Netflix, based on the Jeff Lemire comic. But I gotta be honest, Theo James impressed me. I thought he did a bang up job of the brothers, just being one kind of a psycho adult still in a mullet sewing his own clothes. Like, he played that part really well, and then he also played the other brother really well. So he stood out. I thought that was good. Tatiana Mazaslani, whatever her name is, she was good as the mom. I thought she delivered probably one of the better performances in the movie. But,
I like her.
And then Osgood actually makes an appearance in this film. He is the uncle. The director is
He's
that
ship.
uncle. Yep.
That's funny.
The one who we're gonna do our best, which is probably not gonna be very good.
Yeah, I loved that scene.
Yep.
So they're telling, oh yeah, and we never wanted kids, and we're swingers.
Yep. We're swingers, but that doesn't affect you.
It's like, dude, what the hell? It's like one of those kind of weird moments where it's like Tarantino writing himself into his films, kind of a thing. It's goofy, but it's funny, and it's a really offhand role. Usually.
Yes. It took me a second to realize that was him. At first, I was like, "Is that him?" Yeah, that's definitely him. But I didn't realize he got his start in acting until I started digging more into Oz. I think he was in Legally Blonde way back when. So, and I think that's where he started. So,
and then did he just take like a massive hiatus and then decide to direct like 15 years later?
So I didn't realize that he has done as many movies as he has. I thought he had only done about 3 of them. But I hear he's done 7. And well, he's done 6, and his first one was Blackcoat's Daughter from 2015. And I've heard really good things about that one. And then he did I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House. And then his first one that I was aware of was Gretel and Hansel in 2020, which I'd heard pretty mixed things about that one. So I never watched that. But then Longlegs is what put him on my radar.
Yeah, honestly, I had thought Longlegs was his debut. I didn't even know that he had done these. I mean, I've heard of these movies, but I didn't know they were his.
Yeah. He started with acting. Oh, he actually was in Psycho 2 in 1983 as young Norman.
I'm sure he loves that.
Which would make sense. Yeah. And then 6 Degrees of Separation as a kid, but Legally Blonde in 2001. He was Dorky David. Not Another Teen Movie in 2001.
He's a dorky looking dude. I mean, I think it fits well.
He is. But yeah, the performances in this movie I thought were pretty solid.
Yeah, Colin O'Brien, Petey. I'd never really seen him in anything before. So he's kind of a newer actor, but I liked his portrayal of a pissed off teenager who's like, "Fuck you, Dad," and why won't you hang out with me, kind of thing. I think he nailed that pretty good, and being kind of a talk back and dirt butt hole kind of kid.
The scene in the car where the realtor knocks on the window, and yes. When he was like, "I just found out I have an uncle," this moment, I was like, "That's pretty good scene." I like that.
Like she offs in the car and he goes through his whole diatribe. I'm like, yes.
Yep.
She's like, "Oh, no card." I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you guys have said. I thought the acting was really good. I thought the children actors were really good. The mom was great. Theo James was awesome. Although I don't know, I think he was, and I keep coming back to this, but him as the brother was a little too goofy for me at times. But I don't know if I don't blame him for that. So
yeah,
The other
I think
guy that was trying to get the monkey, the young guy that
Who
held
was
him at
that?
gunpoint with the cop uniform, Rohan
He was
Campbell.
awesome. Yeah, he was awesome.
Oh, that guy kind of annoyed me a little bit.
Really?
Yeah, he was okay, but I was like, I don't know, something about it just kind of annoyed me.
Who?
I thought he was really good in the car scene when he's in the back and he has the gun and
It goes off. It's like, dude, you knob, come on.
yeah.
Act like you know what you're doing. Like, seriously.
He's not even listed in the cast, and he's probably like the fourth biggest character.
Someone look at the wiki.
Yeah, I'm on the IMDb.
Canadian actor was on starring as Frank Hardy on the 2020 series adaptation of The Hardy Boys.
He's Thrasher.
Yeah.
Wasn't that his name?
Oh, he's the guy. He's in the Halloween Ends. Yeah. He's the Michael Myers counterpart in Halloween Ends.
That was him?
I couldn't see his eyes or recognize his face because the wig is
There's a crappy hair. I was like, dude, geez.
It was, okay. And that was one of the that was entirely on purpose to be just weirdly funny again. Yeah, he was in the Halloween Ends, one of the most divisive Halloween films of all time.
Never saw that one either, so I don't know. I can't say.
I have such a weird relationship with those 3 Halloween movies.
That is, the discussion of Halloween Ends is an entire episode in itself.
Yeah.
Because I didn't hate it, but I think every complaint about it is valid. So
that was like, and not to delve into it, but that was more like that movie was like an expectation versus reality thing. So I really hated it the first time, but I've rewatched it a few times, and I kind of like it more knowing, what they were going for. But
yeah,
I digress.
I like tangents; they make it more interesting sometimes. But for acting, I was a 4. Thought it was pretty great in the acting department.
Same 4.
I was a 4 as well.
We're actually 4 across the board with Bearded Film Guy and Aaron as well.
Nice.
So,
nice.
This is one that I wanted to talk about. The direction. I love this connection, and it's not with a jaded, or not jaded, but rosy glasses that I'm seeing this. But, I'm like, oh, Oz's father was in my favorite movie of all time by one of my favorite directors of all time. And that movie is beautifully directed. So I go into this one like, oh, maybe he learned something from his father who worked with the master. I think he was way too young when his father died. But one of the things I've grown to love about these 2 recent Osgood movies is he kind of has this eye for liminal spaces. And I love it. Between Longlegs and this one, Longlegs really leans into like a vintage, kind of grungy 90s aesthetic. This one just leans into kind of a misty, foggy aesthetic. But both of them use liminal spaces in their shots where we have a nice little lighting. You just see a dirty hotel room that you feel like you have been in before. You see the outside of a motel or something, and it's just foggy, and I love it. I love his use of these spaces, and I've seen 2 movies of his, and both of them use those types of spaces really well. And I thought this one actually leaned into it a little bit more than Longlegs did. And there's just a lot of establishing shots of this liminal space where we feel like we've been. We feel like it's familiar, even though it's slightly strange. And he often, in this one I noticed, would have people interacting. Usually a liminal space doesn't have characters in it, but he might establish the shot of the liminal space and then a character would walk into screen. And he did that with this movie. But I think it gives all of it a very, even though this movie's absurd and over the top, it gave it kind of a realistic, grounded atmosphere. One of the scenes, I think it's early on when they go to their aunt's house, maybe. But there's just a shot of this couch that the boys are sitting on that I was like, I swear I've sat on a scratchy, itchy 70s, 80s couch like that in a paneled basement before too. Like I can feel that couch. I can smell that basement from that shot. And that's one of the things that I think Oz is really good at in his movies is giving you this sense of familiarity. He doesn't so far. It's not sterile. It's not super clean. You know, we're not dealing modern glass. We're dealing with something that feels lived in and real. And I like that about it. And I think this movie, even though it keeps that liminal space when we end up in that fortress factory at the end, it gets a little bit more dreamlike there. But the flickering lights in the shadows and how it's still kind of a foggy, blurry atmosphere in there still leans into that. So aesthetically, I think his movies are very pleasing for me because I love liminal spaces, stuff like that. I love vintage signage, paneled basement couches, stuff like that's a whole vibe that I'm here for. And he's done that now with both of his films. So I'll be curious to see if it continues because it gives me this like that's his style, is leaning into that. And I think it's also smart of him because liminal spaces are kind of big on YouTube right now. They're big on social media. There are whole pages that I follow that are just shots of like a neon light on a foggy night. And I'm like, yeah, I love it. But that's something that stood out to me a lot in this movie. He also likes a lot of centered shots using the rule of thirds, but he puts everything in the middle. And I like that. It's starting, well, I like that it's identifiable. Like, oh, that's Oz. He doesn't really use the golden ratio in his movies much. He's very much a rule of thirds camera guy. But I like it. So I'm starting to really like his visual style. I had a lot to say on that one. I actually
really
thought the absurdity of this one probably leaned into his personality more than Longlegs did.
I agree. I think I don't know if I had an issue with this, but you were talking about the vintage and the style of the movie. What year? I mean, it was like what 99 or something. The beginning, like late
99
90s?
or 96, somewhere between there. I remember.
Which
I said 25 years later was today.
Okay, so the today sequences didn't feel very modern. It felt like it felt very vintage. And I don't know if this is like small town Maine, and that's just kind of what he gets away with. And I'm not as familiar with that.
Yeah.
But there were times I was like, this doesn't feel modern, but it's 25 years later. It doesn't feel like any time has really passed. And it kind of threw me off a little bit at times, but
the biggest indicator for time passage, really, cell phones was about it. There wasn't a whole lot of tech, but when the kids were little, there were Goosebumps posters on the wall and Goosebumps books on the bed. I noticed that.
The baggy Jinko pants, looking the kind of wannabe things.
Yeah. Oh, the Jinko shirt. I saw that Jinko shirt. I was like, yeah, Jinko jeans.
Yeah, and I guess like Elijah Wood's house was pretty modern, so like I guess maybe it was just the small Maine town. But one of my favorite shots in the film, actually, and you had mentioned this, Tim, is the motel shot. Actually, when they're like pulling up to the car and at the motel, it was just the whole thing was framed awesome.
Yeah,
and very pretty, and I like the vibe a lot. So I agree. I think with this and Longlegs, I think I look forward to Osgood Perkins movies going forward.
I don't really have much to say about direction. I agree with you guys. I liked a lot of the shots, the way they were laid out. Yeah. I'm just gonna say I'm a 3 on it.
I know direction's your favorite category, so I might have gushed a little bit because I'm a sucker for the liminal spaces, and there were enough shots in this movie that I was like, I would just take that character-less shot and put it as the background on my phone because I like the aesthetic. I gave it a 5. I gave it a 5 on the direction.
And I'm right in between you guys. I gave it a 4. So,
Bearded Film Guy gave it a 5, and Aaron gave it a 3. So the cultural and it factor on this one, this is challenging. This is open to amendment because we are talking 3 days into its theatrical run. Have no idea what this is going to pan out to be, but so far it's divisive.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, this one was kind of hard for me because I think there's very little like cultural impact. I mean, if we're being serious, I think it was a fun movie, but it doesn't add a lot to anything. It doesn't add a lot to me as a person. But I think the biggest part of it's just adding another good movie to like Stephen King's portfolio, I think is like the biggest cultural impact. But
Yeah.
I think
I look at it called. Go ahead, Jonathan.
No, sorry. So as far as impact, I mean, it might, hopefully, depending on how it's received after a little more time in the theaters, maybe might be something that would inspire people a little more to take short stories and expand upon them and see what you can come up with, and helping other people work, that sense of creativity. Because I mean, we're not seeing too much as much originality we'd like to see. A lot of just like a lot of rehash, regurgitated stuff. So maybe there's a lot of untapped material out there that maybe people might think, well, this started out as a short story. Of course, it's Stephen King, yeah, but there's lots of authors out there and other people who write all these small things that end up being picked up by somebody else, and he just runs into this amazing, colossal thing. So I hope that it has that kind of impact. Yeah, but we'll see.
I think Black Phone probably did that better.
Black Phone was so good.
Yeah, and I mean that's also based on a short story. It's Stephen King's son, though, right? I think.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that movie was more impactful in terms of making like people realizing that short stories exist and you can have like a really cool movie or whatever come from it.
Yeah, but now we get Black Phone 2, and I don't know that I need that. So, am I gonna watch it? Yeah, but it was a short story that's now turned into 2 movies.
So is it supposed to be like a prequel? Because I think Ethan Hawke's in it, or is it? I mean, I don't know.
Okay, I've avoided all information about it because I'll see it because I really liked Black Phone, but I've avoided paying any attention. I've been looking at kind of the cultural impact on social media. I think it's done pretty well. It had a buzz about it because of Longlegs. I mean, Longlegs came out less than a year ago. So it's still very fresh in people's minds that Oz made that movie. I think one of the mistakes, to not even sure I like using that word, is going from a movie like Longlegs to this, where Longlegs was a little bit more serious and grounded police procedural, to this one being an absurdist comedy Final Destination. So it's going to be jarring for people who really liked Longlegs to come see this one and it be nothing like Longlegs. So I think that is a little bit, I think it put this movie in people's, why can't I think of the word? People were aware of it. People were interested in it because of Longlegs. And it'll just depend if they thought it worked as a horror comedy or not, because it's not scary whatsoever, but there's not really another genre that you could put this movie into other than horror and comedy. And I'm seeing a lot of the marketing has been pretty good. I've enjoyed, like I mentioned, there are too many trailers showing every death. I think that's detrimental. But I thought the marketing of him sitting down with coroners talking about the kills in the movie and how have they seen stuff like that? Is that likely? It's clever marketing. It's good. Did the kills live up to that marketing? Not really for me. The exploding person hitting an electrified pool is not realistic, but left a little to be desired there. But the marketing for it was smart. They're also pushing right now. I don't get the connection. I don't get it, but I think it's hilarious. they're pushing right now that you can screen this movie in churches at the same time it's in movie theaters.
What?
They're advertising. You can get the rights to show this at your church.
Yeah, which I don't understand either. I would understand if they like Longlegs had that, because Longlegs kind of has a connection to
more religious.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like there's zero religion other than like he built a shrine to the monkey. He basically worshiped the monkey as a god towards the end of the movie.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, I think it's just a shock value to upset uptight religious people, and I think that's
Beware
hilarious.
false idols, children.
Yeah, you know,
don't play with your monkey.
I couldn't see the movie Friday night because I had Bible study, but I still think them marketing this for churches is so funny. But I don't understand it necessarily. Like I don't get the connection, but it's out there. It's creating a buzz. People are talking about it. So I gave the It Factor a 3 because it's still kind of, its greater cultural impact is left to be seen at this time. It could come back and change that. But for now, I'm hoping it dethrones Captain America at number 1, which it looks like it's going to do for the weekend. So that would kind of be awesome. But I was seeing the buzz about this is that this movie could take the number 1 spot from a superhero movie. And for horror, that's a pretty big deal. So I'm cool with that. That would be awesome.
Yeah, Terrifier 3 did it with Joker too. So.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's
Arthur
right.
the Clown dethroned. Yeah, my guy.
But Joker 2, I still haven't watched that because I don't want to put myself through that. It doesn't exist in my brain.
I actually really enjoyed that movie. I had a lot of fun with it. I think it's misunderstood, or I just really don't have good taste in certain movies. But
that's one of those that I don't think the first one needed it. So when I heard mixed reviews, I was like, I don't know that I need to put myself through that. I'm sure I'll watch it someday.
Well, with my high hopes yet to be seen, I gave It Factor a 4.
Okay. 3 and a 4.
And I went with a 2. So, and I kind of talked about it at the beginning. So, I don't know. I thought it was a fun movie, and my theater was pretty full. And I mean, people were laughing and enjoying it. I think it will be kind of like a horror movie that's very or maybe not acceptable, but people are able to digest it. You could take your person that maybe isn't that big into horror to this, and they'll have fun with it. So
honestly, it's a party movie.
Yeah.
You show this at a Halloween party, and it's gonna go over pretty well in most cases. Bearded Film Guy was a 4 on the It Factor, and Aaron was a 3 on the It Factor.
Okay, sassy.
So how entertained were you overall? And this is I'm just gonna gush about, like, I have a buddy who I actually started The Average with back when it began as a way to rank the Marvel films to determine which Marvel film was the best Marvel film. That's how this all started. Because it used to be like based on source material and action and all that. And then I just evolved it to talk about all movies. But he always gives me a hard time for the system. And I'm like, yeah, man, but you tell me how many stars it is out of 5, and then you score it, and it's never wrong. Like it's been right every single time. And I just love this part about it when we talk about how entertained we are. Because we've been pretty much all over the board, but let's get into how entertained we are.
I was very entertained. I enjoyed most aspects of the film. And I think it satisfied what I was looking for as far as, some gore and some crazy action that I wouldn't get in other films. And just, the fact, like I said earlier, I was surprised at how humorous it was. And that just really wound it up for me with the comedy aspect of it on top of it. And I know I'm definitely recommending this to everybody. That's, hands down going to recommend to everybody. And just like I would buy this. I would own it in my collection, I think, because I enjoyed how just the fun comedy of the kills itself, all the way, especially with the mass part of it at the end. So yeah, I enjoyed this one very much, despite some of my critiques of the other parts. So I'm sitting pretty high on a 9 as far as my entertainment on this.
Chris, you want to go?
Yeah, I mean, I've been kind of critical of the movie so far, but this one was the easiest one for me. I mean, I enjoyed this movie a lot too. I think I maybe enjoyed it like immediately after more than I do now. That just because I don't know like the lasting impact for me, and it was just pure fun. But it was refreshing going to a movie and just having fun with it. And there not being a whole lot else with it. You know, it's just a popcorn flick that you go, and I didn't have to think that much. And so, I mean, I appreciated the hell out of that with this one. So, yeah, I ended up giving it an 8. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Nice.
And like I said, we have been all over the board leading into this, but I'm saying that an 8 too. I thought the final act didn't really hit home too much for me. The brother dialogue, I wasn't feeling that much, but everything up to that point, I was having a great time with. I busting out laughing when the priest is getting up doing his thing at the funeral, making a joke about how her head's not attached to her body. I thought that was so funny when the lady explodes diving into the pool. I'm busting up laughing. Like I was purely entertained by this movie, and like Jonathan said, I would own it. I would watch it again for sure. Bearded Film Guy gave it a 10. Aaron gave it a 7. So even if we're all over the place leading into it, we are all in that high out of 10 category for how much we enjoyed it. So final thoughts on it.
Oh, like I said, I kind of hope that there's some sort of sequel to it. I really do, and I want to see some more crazy out of that. Just like all the different death stuff that happened at the end in such scale was so amazing, and I would like to see some more comedy gore. I really would. I would like to see some more of that out in the theaters.
Yeah, for me, I think I would prefer more of like a spiritual sequel or spiritual successor. So it's not really the monkey, it's not really related, but it's Osgood doing the same thing with another movie, another concept, maybe another short story. I don't really know. And it having the same, vibe and tone, but it not being, a continuation of this or a prequel to this. I don't know that I would necessarily enjoy that, but I thought this one was awesome. I had a lot of fun with it, despite my criticisms, and I look forward to more movies from the director.
I want to see. I'm double checking here. He actually already has another movie.
I saw that, and
coming
I think the mom stars in it. The mom in this movie that we gave her glowing.
Tatiana.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how this guy was so prolific. It's called Keeper. During an anniversary getaway in a remote cabin, a wife is left alone after her husband departs, only to confront a sinister presence that exposes the cabin's chilling past. It sounds more serious. It's not written by Osgood, but it is directed. It's Tatiana Maslany.
Do we know if Longlegs was written by him?
Rosif Sutherland. I think it was. Ouch. Yes, Longlegs was written by him.
Interesting.
But yeah, I like his little style that he's developed himself. And my final thoughts on how entertained I was. I'm here for the next Osgood movie. I'll see Keeper. I can't believe that the dude's made 3 movies in a 2-year time span, maybe less than that. That one's coming out in 2025. Like, that's prolific for a filmmaker. I know Luca whatever his name is, that pretentious director, put out 2 movies this year, but
yeah,
I didn't see either of those, and I won't. So he burned me. I'm done with him. Yeah. So our final scores, grand totals for everybody.
I got 39.
You got 39. I got 39.
I think mine was 32, if I did my mental math correctly. But
it was.
Okay, good.
And then Chris Higgins was 43. That's Bearded Film Guy. And then Aaron was 33. All together, we averaged a 37.2. So a 3.5 stars, which is, I would consider that pretty accurate for for this movie.
Hot damn. All right.
So 3.5 stars at 37 puts it in the great category, according to her. It's a great movie. It's a great movie for social settings specifically. And I would agree with that. I think it'd be a crowd pleaser because the gore is not insane. It's not enough to gross people out necessarily too much for those that are sensitive to it. It's also not like the deaths are scary. We're not talking Terrifier 3 shower scene or did you see Terrifier 2 yet, Jonathan?
No, I still got to get around to doing that. Maybe I'll do that later tonight. I might, because I don't have to work till later.
It's not the girl strung up by her ankles chainsaw scene from the first one. Like that's not this movie. This movie is
the hacksaw where he cuts her in half, like from upside down, hanging like that. Dude, that was so brutal, and I was like, oh wow, oof.
Man.
Oof.
2, I can't wait for you to see the bedroom scene.
No, it's hardcore. It's great, but
2 is. I think 2 is awesome. I mean, I've said it on this podcast. I think every episode I've brought up Terrifier, so I don't. But anyways, go ahead.
The bedroom scene in the second one, I almost passed out. Like I almost passed out. It was too much for me. But yeah, that's not this movie. This movie borders. It's like the Three Stooges of horror movies. It's slapstick. It is slapstick horror. It's Jason Lives Friday 6. Like it's just silly and fun, and it's great. So yeah, that's where we're at. I don't have a whole lot else to say. Anybody else?
No, I'm good.
Yep, nope, not
All right,
me.
Bearded Film Guy's final thoughts were he loved it. Thank you. And Aaron from AB Horror said a very entertaining film. The finale was somewhat anticlimactic, but still a fun watch. He enjoyed it. So I was right there with Aaron. All right, that about wraps up our deep dive into The Monkey. Chris, excited to have you joining us.
Very excited to be here.
And look, at the end of the day, The Monkey reminds us that life is cruel, random, and sometimes straight up ridiculous. Kind of like this movie. Kind of like real life. You never know when fate's going to wind up that drum and take a swing. Or maybe the choices we make have a greater impact on those around us.
And on that cheerful note,
remember, movies are more than just what's on screen. They're the conversations we have after the credits roll.
So keep the dialogue going, share your thoughts, and let's turn every movie night into something unforgettable.
This is The Average, where the real review happens with your friends. See you next time.